2016's Doom was a delight. Fast-paced, tight controls, ultra-gory kills, it was a pleasure to play. As much as the developers made strides to keep up the pace, forcing players to do melee kills to replenish ammo was a brilliant conceit, for example, it couldn't recapture the experience of playing the original Doom for the first time. All of the bells and whistles, the great plot and storytelling, and the fantastically intricate level design prevent it from truly capturing the feel of its genre-defining masterpiece. Doom 2016 is incredible, but it's not Doom. It doesn't have that feeling of wildly rushing headlong through throngs of enemies, slaughtering all of the hordes of hell with impunity. It never feels dangerously, recklessly metal the way Doom did, because it can't. The enemies are so elaborately crafted that they don't feel strange and dangerous anymore. Doom was about fighting unholy blasphemy. Doom 2016 is about battling enemies so ugly that they almost loop back around to being adorbs. As a result, by the time Doom VFR was released, the developers had deviated so far from what the Doom name should imply that it feels like a perfectly suitable VR shooter is tarnished by association with a game that it doesn't even attempt to resemble. So Doom isn't Doom anymore. But we shouldn't worry about that too much, because Necromutex is. Necromutex is a VR-focused shooting game about escaping from a self-destructing satellite research facility with 10,000 rooms. Each one of them is filled to the brim with horrific monstrosities, human beings that have been torn to pieces and then reassembled to create biological weapons of war. The goal? Make it to an escape pod before the station detonates. The problem? While the player starts the game in Sector 0, escape pods start at Sector 3333 and appear at each repeating digit afterwards. So it's going to be one hell of a battle getting there. It's impossible to overstate just how perfectly Necromutex recreates the feel of playing the original Doom. Enemies swarm from every corner of the ship, running endlessly forward as the player blasts them to pieces with a robust arsenal of weapons. From shotgun to minigun to rocket launcher to arc beam. There's a gun for every possible situation the player might find themselves in, especially since each gun has both a regular fire mode and an ammo-hogging alt-fire mode that lets them do a huge amount of damage to their enemies in the blink of an eye. The game's enemies are nightmarish monstrosities, humans mutilated to the point where they're almost unrecognizable as such. The player is surrounded at all times by skinned parodies of humanity, broken and transformed into animals and beasts. Sometimes the enemies don't even make logical sense. This, for example, is a killer Roomba with a skeletal arm protruding from its skull, offering a spinning buzzsaw to its enemies. Who would build such a thing? Why? There are enemies whose faces have been replaced by drills, creatures with cow skulls for some reason, flying laser beasts and high-heeled snipers and crudely built scorpions. It's all alienating and off-putting and viscerally troubling in the way Doom was at its best. Perhaps the most impressive feature of the game's monsters is how effectively they scale up. In addition to the regular version of these Thanatoids, that's the name the developer has given to these creatures, there are super-sized ones with damage and health increases to match. Players can even encounter boss variations, which are towering 3-story monsters with crazy abilities. The game is packed full with disturbing enemies, which makes it all the more satisfying to splatter whole rooms of them into paste with a rocket launcher. That's not an exaggeration either. The game's low-poly enemies mean that hundreds of them can appear on-screen simultaneously. With thousands packed into each of the game's later levels, the game can easily transform into players blasting away at tides of meat. Level design is equally strong. There are literally 10,000 unique levels in the game, and while the vast majority of them are procedurally generated by mixing and matching from a set of pre-made rooms and corridors, the game doesn't feel repetitive. There are so many options to shuffle through that even if a player recognizes a specific room, which will happen frequently enough, the way the game mixes and matches those rooms together, and the unique enemy layout in each one, ensures that every level of the game I've encountered feels like a markedly different location. The game allows players to choose whichever level they want to at any point, and gives them a preview layout so they can make an informed choice. In addition to offering the number of enemies, as well as their estimated tonnage, this display tells them what kind of mutators are in place to multiply the level's score. On their own, needing to kill half a level's enemies or having no ammo drops offer paltry rewards. But once a few have been stacked together, it's not unusual to see levels offering between 20 and 40 times the score for each kill. Even the game's progression system is incredibly well thought out. Players can earn space bucks by killing Thanatoids, then spend it on character upgrades. That can mean improving weapons, buying more shield packs, increasing the number of times they can go into near-death mode, which offers a few seconds of respite after the player has taken what would have been fatal damage. They can even buy super bombs to clear the immediate area, and time dilation, which lets them zip through levels, slaughtering the Thanatoids as if they were statues. The game's masterstroke, though, is the chrono points system. At first the game can seem too difficult and a little unbalanced, but it's just setting up a desire in the player to come back again, stronger than before, which the game lets them do. Killing the two different types of bosses, Oculoids and Superbrains, earn the player chrono points, which they can spend in order to permanently upgrade their damage, health, and reward multiplier. The hitch is that using the chrono points resets the game's timeline, and they have to start over from the beginning, now in a much deadlier form. While a player might struggle to make it to level 1000 their first time running through the game, by the time they've reset things 3 or 4 times, they'll be starting there. Necromutex offers impossible challenges, then gives players all the tools they'll need to overcome them. It's an example of brilliant game design motivating players to keep coming back over and over again, as if the thrill of splattering thousands of Thanatoids didn't already have that covered. Necromutex is the best arcade shooter currently available in VR. It's a truly exceptional experience in every way, and it provides the kind of brutal, high-octane thrills I've only ever seen a handful of times before. So, with that in mind, Necromutex's final score is... It is Doom. Out of 10. 2 final notes. 1. The game can be played on desktops, but shouldn't be. The level layouts and monster density is specifically designed for the kind of situational awareness and ability to freely aim that can only come with playing it in VR. 2. If you like the sound of everything else the game does, but aren't sure about the horrific monsters and ultraviolence, the developer has got you covered. Attack of the Retrobots is the exact same game in every respect, but with Adorb's Retrobots swapped in for Thanatoids. I've been the Hidden Object Guru, see you back here for the next thing, and be sure to buy a copy of Necromutex.